I also hate that we think that we know what an abuser looks like. We're like, well, I mean, he's really nice to me. I'm sure he is, you guys. You can be nice and abusive. Like, it does, the two don't correlate. You can be a great father and a horrible fucking husband. You can be an amazing best friend and a terrible girlfriend. All those things can go together. And the sooner we realize that these things can exist as one and those things don't discredit it, like someone can be an amazing musician and abusive as fuck and still needs to be held accountable for that, as soon as we get that in, then we can move to the next step.
Do you really know how I'm feeling? Do you really know?
Hi! Welcome to Mayowa's world. Alright you guys, so I'm trying to do more unscripted videos because I feel like me just talking my thoughts raw has like a better reception. I have a tendency to want to like cut out all the ums and uhs and like awkwardness, but it's real. So before I get started, I always forget to promote my stuff. I have a Patreon, which is mayowasworld which is patreon.com/mayowasworld. You can join for $7.77 a month. I guess I'm sure you can tell what my favorite number is. I have my film out, which I really need to like promote that more on my YouTube because I promote it a lot on my Instagram. But my film that I made in 2016 called Acting White is out. That's available for purchase. I'm soon going to be selling prints. Maybe by the time I have uploaded it, I will have of my art, so support. Today's topic I want to talk about is related to sexual assault. It's also related to calling out abusers. So just trigger warning for anybody. I'm going to be talking about sexual assault, probably talking about rape, domestic abuse, all of it. I feel like I was really affected by seeing, but hearing the story about Toyin's death. And something that has been really like in my mind is the concept of calling out abusers and the ways in which we protect, the ways in which our language and our society naturally wants to side with abusers more than to side with victims. And it happens through so many small things that we hear whenever there are sexual allegations that come out. One of them being that people say, like, I think the biggest thing I hear people say whenever we talk about sexual assault is like, it's not fair to just take someone's word and hold them and like accuse them and send them to jail and like ruin their whole life if we don't know that it's true. And yeah, like I don't think anyone should be put in jail, period, but anyone should be put in jail for something that they didn't do. There's some statistics, which I don't know, I'll like put it here, but I think it's like 1% of women who have been sexually assaulted report. So like let's just say it what it is, right? So like 1% of women are reporting, right? So, and most times when you talk to girls or talk to people who are victims of sexual assault, most people don't want to go to court. Most people don't want to sit in a stiff, cold ass room with police officers and judges and retell their story hundreds of times. Like let's just debunk that myth. Most people don't want to do that. Most people, and like I think about myself because like I've had the whole range of everything happen to me in my life, but I have never, like I've gone to the cops in my life twice ever, both times being in Germany, but obviously I faced sexual assault thousands of times, not thousands, a lot, but like loads of times before I went to the police. And my experience of going to the police, one of my, trigger warning, the story is going to be graphic, but one of the things that happened to me when I was in Germany was I was on a train and a guy tries to grab my body and I push him to say like stop, because he comes to like grab my like waist, and I push him, it's like 9 o'clock in the morning, I push him to say stop. Then he takes his beer, he's drinking beer. Also in Germany you can just drink beer like anywhere. He takes his beer and he pours it on my head in front of loads of people on the train. I am in complete shock. I'm not really sure. I think he says something to me in German, and then he's like, fuck you, and then someone had seen it, someone had pushed him, and then he took the bottle and he threw it at my head. So I ducked, man, it was traumatic. I ducked the bottle, the glass shattered all over me. The fact that I even ducked the bottle, like, it was crazy because I'm like, man, he was aiming for my fucking head. Like, most people cannot duck like that. Like, it was also the same time I was like fighting, so I have really quick reflexes in that way. But it was just like super fucking traumatizing like in that moment. And I was going to work, I had to catch a train, so I went to the train station to go, because the train station usually has like a police. So I went there, I was crying, and I was like, let me go to the police because I'm already here, the police is here, like this guy just threw a bottle at my head, it's shattered everywhere, I'm covered in beer. I don't even know how I'm gonna explain this to the people at my job. Like, so I went to the police station, I told them what happened. They spent 40 minutes trying to figure out if I'm a refugee. They're like, so are you sure are you sure you're from this country? Like, and I'm like, no, I'm from America. They're like, but do you have your passport on you? So 40 minutes was like the fact that I didn't have my passport. I'm frazzled. And so they like file complaints with it. I'm not really sure where that complaint goes. It's also very complicated because I'm getting these letters. I don't speak that good enough German to translate it, but it was even caught on camera. But like, I don't know what happened with the footage. I don't know if they persecuted the man. None of that stuff. Like, for me, I haven't had good results with police. I haven't had, you know what I mean? Is that surprising? No, because I'm a black woman. So not only am I facing the racism aspect, but I also face the sexism aspect. The other time I went to the police, also over sexual assault. I don't want to get into that story. Very horrific. When I told them, every time I went to the police, it was like a mixture of racism and sexism. So they were saying something racist to me and also degrading my body. I went to them and they were just like, so is it more racism or is it more sexism? So let's just be real. I don't want to have to talk to a man who has never experienced this right after my assault. If that is you, if that's your experience, if you go to the police and it's working for your favor, all for you. I'm just speaking for myself. Maybe girls or people who are similar to me also maybe don't want to go the legal route. So like, let's just get out of this conversation of always having things be legal. I think that the thing is that for someone to stop a violent action, they have to be held accountable, period. So accountability looks like a lot of things to a lot of different people. And I wish we could have conversations for like what accountability looks like, because it's so vast for so many different survivors. I run a weekly meetup where I talk with dark-skinned femmes about sexual assault, and we kind of work through different things together, or sexual assault, domestic abuse, whatever. And so we kind of talk to it. So everyone's like vision of what accountability looks like is very different. Some people want a sorry, some people want that person to acknowledge that they did that, some people just want other people to be safe in the future. It's like a range of things, but like we never even want to have that discussion. Like, we are so, and it's kind of funny when you relate sexual assault to racism, because most of us who are black have experienced racism in our lifetimes. How many of us have footage of the racism that we've experienced? I'm guessing not a lot. Like, I literally have one footage that's slick, sketchy, which I'll show you guys.
I'm better than a yes.
Why are they mad? I'm so confused. Why are they mad? Look.
And like, that's it. I only have one footage, right? But most of us don't have footage of racism existing. And a lot of the issues we're having with George Floyd and with and Ahmaud Arbery and all these things that are caught on tape is that some people only think systems exist when they see it with their eyes. Like, I think it is really appalling, the people who think that George Floyd was the first person who now they're like realizing racism is real. Like, I'm saying, I don't know what dimension you were in or what kind of denial you are existing in, but it's that exact same thing with sexual assault. And I wish people could really understand that, like, most people aren't having footage of them getting sexually assaulted. It's just not gonna happen. And even if you do have footage, most people don't even want it out there because their bodies are so vulnerable looking. Like, most people don't want to have a footage of someone hitting them or beating them. Most people don't want to see footage of someone calling them a bitch and threatening their lives. Like, and I understand that. We shouldn't, why do we have to show footage of ourselves to be understood or heard? Just like we don't have to show footage of racism to know it's real, we shouldn't have to show footage of sexual assault or domestic abuse or abuse to know it's real. We lose nothing by listening to people. We lose nothing by hearing the experiences. I read this quote online that was like, I would rather accidentally believe a liar than accidentally believe a rapist or an abuser. And I feel like that is so fucking deep. Like, yeah, I would much rather work through, like, I feel like if someone lies in that situation, there's so much that needs to be like addressed. Like, what is making you feel like that? What's going on with you? Like, there's so much. We need to learn how to like hold people in those situations, like understand like why are you doing that? That's a whole different discussion. But like, the violence that happens when men are abusive and they have multiple people who are coming out, and we're just like, yeah, but we don't want to hold them accountable. It's like ultimately they can keep going because they're not losing anything. Like everybody wants to talk about how much men can lose or people can lose by them knowing they're abusers. Abusers have law firms, they're the president of the United States. Like I think we historically do not do shit to abusers. So I don't know why this conversation of like, oh, we're gonna ruin their reputation. I think a lot of them are doing just fine. They're running for presidency. They are music execs. They are rappers that we listen to, that we continue to play. The only person I've ever seen accountability kind of fully go out with is R. Kelly. That's it. And it took such a long time. And it took many people telling stories before people were like, yeah. And it's like, that's really sad. And then it's like you realize that denial, that want to not believe is systemic. It's systemically sexist. That want to always be like, well, if you don't have footage, it's just not real. That's systemically sexist. A lot of things exist outside of footage, and I wish we can get out of this mentality of thinking that everything has to be caught on camera for something to be real. A lot of times people just are wanting to protect other people from the same experiences that they went through. A lot of times these people have multiple people they're doing it to, and they're just like living their life, getting booked for work, living the best that they can, because no one's gonna say, homie, you're a fucking abuser. Like nobody wants to have that conversation with their friends. And another thing, because like I had a situation, I might cut this out, I might not cut this out, but I had a situation where I have someone who was abusive to me. And I like went on my Instagram and I see that 71 of my friends follow him. And I was like, you know what, this has really, really hurt me. It really hurts my feelings. So I really like built up the courage and I wrote like majority of my friends and I was like, hey, I just want you to know this person's abusive. It kind of hurts my feelings, not kind of hurts, it hurts my feelings that this, like, you can see my work and see what I stand for and still follow someone who either you know he's abusive or you don't know, but do what you want with that information. The backlash I got, like, a lot of people were really cool with it and had no problems, but then I got a lot of backlash. And I think that it's really interesting that like we get mad at people for speaking out, and it really like has so many like interesting parallels, because it kind of reminds me of like everybody wants to talk about the monster or like the abuser or a rapist, and we think of them as a monster, and everybody thinks this monster is someone who has like a hood up with like fangs and scars on their face and like tattered clothes and like really big, and we're like, oh, we gotta find the monster, who's the monster, who's this person, who's the man, who are the people that we're fighting against? And we forget that it's like, it's fucking us, we are the monsters. Like, I think that's like, people are like, well, you know, we need to hold abusers accountable. And it's like, but who is this vague person that we always speak about? It's gonna be your homeboys, right? It's gonna be your friends. It's gonna be you. Every single time you've seen something and you were complicit and you didn't say anything, you are contributing to that, making that monster bigger and bigger. So there is a monster that exists, and we contribute to it every time we act as if we don't know how this can happen, when our silence is literally what creates that violence. Like, I mean, it's just like really frustrating. Like, the reason I write people telling them, hey, this person's abusive, is because I don't want that to happen to somebody else. And I think that's probably most people's mentality, is like, this person is going unchecked, this person is doing these things that are like really violent to people, and no one is telling them, no one is calling them out, no one is saying, hey, this person is harmful. We just continue to contribute, we continue to like encourage this mentality, and it's fucking violent. And I'm just like at a point where after seeing Toyin call people out and still die, you know why? Because no one believed her. I'm just like, call these motherfuckers out. Why are we protecting them? Like, what does this silence do? It protects them. Every single time you don't want to, you're like, oh, I don't want to get in the middle. You're protecting these people. There is no harm in hearing people out. There is no harm in asking someone to speak about this. There's no harm, like, asking the person who's being, like, if there's an abuser, like, asking him, yo, why do you catcall girls? Like, that's contributing to the same culture. So many things. Catcalling contributes to the same culture. Your homeboys who are emotionally abusing women contributes to the same culture. The people who gaslight like people who come out, that contributes to the same culture. We are all contributing to it. So we need to ask ourselves, what are we doing that's adding to this system that makes people, women, non-binary, trans women, all these people feel like they can't come forward. How are we adding to that fire? Because that adds to rape culture. And so like I'm at a point where I'm just like tired of staying silent for people who like didn't give a fuck about my life. And I think that the more we have people speak out, the more we have people advocate for the things that they've been through and say this isn't okay, and call out people who give these people platforms and don't have any like they're not even willing to reflect on these things, these all contribute to it. And like I said, I think that like most people aren't wanting legal action. I think we need to just stop that whole like legal this, legal that. It's like people talk about like abolishing police, but a lot of motherfuckers love to act like judges and police. A lot of people love to be like, well, you know, they want to take it into their own hands to act like the judge and decide, well, does this woman seem like the kind of person who would just sleep with anyone and lie? Like, you don't. I also hate that we think that we know what an abuser looks like. We're like, well, I mean, he's really nice to me. I'm sure he is, you guys. You can be nice and abusive. Like, the two don't correlate. You can be a great father and a horrible fucking husband. You can be an amazing best friend and a terrible girlfriend. All those things can go together. And the sooner we realize that these things can exist as one and those things don't discredit it, like someone can be an amazing musician and abusive as fuck and still needs to be held accountable for that. As soon as we get that in, then we can move to the next step, which is fucking reform. Because I don't believe in prison, so I don't believe in throwing people away, right? But we can't address the reform if we're not even addressing the accountability. Like everyone's like, oh, but you can't just like, it's not fair to like hold someone accountable for something that they did one time. It's like, well, first off, we do that all the time in society. Second off, if that person doesn't admit to it, there's no second step. I'm not gonna forgive someone who has not done anything. Like they're like still doing it. Like forgiveness for what? Like, and who else is given that kind of forgiveness? Like if I was like, oh, I mean, I hated somebody so I accidentally killed them one time, and like, no, like you wouldn't be so quick to force me to forgive. Like forgiveness comes when accountability is like had. So we have to hold people accountable. We gotta do it. And like I'm tired of feeling fear and getting nervous and getting embarrassed. Like when I speak out and I'm like, oh, how do I know if I'm gonna be believed? People are gonna believe what they want to believe anyway. If you don't think I'm a credible source, it doesn't matter what I say, you're gonna always think that. Like if you're conditioned to believing that women innately lie, that's on you. But for me, I'm tired of keeping quiet. I love seeing this movement of people speaking up. I love seeing people take back their rights the same way that people are showing footage and speaking, not just showing footage, but speaking on their own racist experiences, the same way that they're advocating for that. I want to see that same energy on the sexual assault realm, especially from Black women, because we are so silenced, and a lot of times we are facing sexism and racism and colorism and so many isms while trying to exist in this body. And I'm done, bitch. This is the last motherfucking generation. Like, it ends with me, bitch. My children are not like, I'm so tired. Like, I want to be louder, and I want others to be louder, because this is fucked up. And I'm not keeping quiet to protect someone who would not protect me. And like also, who is our silence protecting? Why are we protecting people so much? And they don't protect you. No, it's done. I'm done. So I hope that's helpful. I'm gonna try to upload this the same day. We'll see if I get there, but I feel better sharing that because I shared this, like I addressed everybody and I was like really nervous and I got a lot of backlash, but I got people who were also cool with it, and I was like just so overwhelmed, so I got off the internet for a few days because I was like really sad about it. But now I'm kind of getting in a place where I'm like, ultimately me speaking out was good because I'm protecting people from the future. I don't want anyone to have the same thing that I had, and that's ultimately what I'm doing when I speak out, is like I want to protect others from experiencing what I did, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like just because people are complicit and staying quiet and not doing shit doesn't mean it's right. The most popular things are not always right. So, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Cheers!